we talked about like customers and being worried about being behind, and everybody's kind of starting at a different spot. So I wanted to talk about some organizations that you may have worked with and sort of what the next phase looks like for their journey. So like if you go into an org and they're an absolute beginner, if you can think of a time you've gone in and they've got nothing in the cloud, how do they get started? What's the first step for them?
So I think for them, they're thinking the technology. They think we have technology to move over here. Let's get it over there. And I would say the lift and shift mentality was really popular. And we do still see customers do it. If they're like, my data center contract's ending in 6 months, I've got to get everything out of there. I don't want to extend. It's going to save me, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month or whatever the costs are. There's that lift and shift component. So whenever we see a customer that's like, we're going to the cloud, where do we start? Again, it's that cultural mindset and like, what are we trying to achieve? And that's always what we're asking is, what do we consider? What's our definition of done? And what are we trying to achieve? And how we get there is going to be a journey. But we need to make that cultural shift within the team of also why we're going to the cloud. So organizations that opt to go there, again, well, the cloud's the hot topic. Okay, well, is there a financial reason, whatever? And a lot of times there's a financial reason, let's be honest. The customer, wants to save X amount, or someone's shown them, a sales team goes in and shows them that they can save X amount. They probably can. But if that's the only driver, we need to address a lot more than that. If that's, so I think it's really looking at the cultural change. It's looking at all the technologies and finding the right fit. And looking at that transformation then and there, and not just throwing it up there and I'll do it later. It's getting them to think, we have a cultural change. We're going to the cloud. Let's start making the changes we need now, like security implementation, all these tooling. Let's do that now in the beginning. And that's part of DevOps, we're shifting left. And there's so many good reasons to shift left, and we can go on and on and have lists about that, but that's really key.
So the shift left thing, I've heard that before, and it didn't really make sense to me the first time I heard it, because I was like, where's left? Where are we shifting? I don't. Okay, what does it mean? So for listeners out there that have heard this term before and kind of just come away scratching their head, when you say shift left, what does that mean?
So I like to sometimes show like a little pretty graph. Okay. And we have stats. We have stats about DevOps. So like, people talk about DevOps as a theory. And I said, well, DevOps is a practice, and we have actual stats to know how DevOps works and what these companies are actually achieving by embracing DevOps. So, we can pull those numbers forward. But when we talk about, shifting left, a customer is you're doing something. If you think of a graph, I show my hands up, but I'm probably going to do them on the wrong side. You're doing everything in production. Oh, I'll fix that later approach. I'll do it later. So you're making changes in production or after the fact. So you get this giant, huge hump in production of issues, cost, increased cost to fix, outage times, etc. We know that over 85% of errors occur in the code. You start the code on the left-hand side of that graph. So if we start addressing errors in the code before they get to production, we implement testing, we do all these, the right DevOps steps to get there. We do everything early and often, and we fail fast. So we implement something early and often, we fail fast, we know that didn't work, we get it right, and then we go to production. We don't do it, oh, I'll just do it later, because that I'll do it later means it gets forgotten. And it's something as simple as if you've built let's say you've built a server by hand, and you have a password somewhere, and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to put in this text file on the desktop of the server, and everybody's happy. Maybe it's like the SQL database password, or I don't know, the admin password, because I've seen that. And you're like, oh, I'll just do this later. Oh, you know what? I forgot to harden this server properly. I'll just do it later. It's working. It's been delivered to the dev team because I had a time crunch, If we say, right, let's automate this, and we have a known working script, whether that be in PowerShell, whether that be in Python if you're working in VMware, or even in Terraform ARM templates, you write the script, you have a hardened version of your server, it's tested, and then you deploy to production. You have a known good working product. So we've shifted left. We've started doing everything before production, before it gets deployed. We start testing it. We make it, we're really thorough and do our due diligence before it goes out.
Right. And I would imagine the more mature the organization gets, the further they're able to shift some of these processes to the left and incorporate them more often.
Well, and that's something else that's popped in my head too. If we're shifting left, And we all of a sudden failing fast doesn't sound so bad in that scenario. It's no longer the butt of a joke. It's the thing you actually want to do since you're doing it before production. Yep, let's get it done. Let's get this thing to a mature state so that we can release it. Doing it before production, failing fast, okay at that point.
Absolutely. So it takes that scary, we've deployed it, and everyone's, heads down, fingers and toes crossed, praying or meditating that nothing is going to break and you still have a job tomorrow. We go and we test it. We know it works. We can stand it up, break it down, whatever we need to do, and then go, right, now we're ready. And that means we can iterate faster and faster. So yes, it takes time to script everything. Yes, it takes time to build it, but we know, it takes us, let's say, 4 hours to deploy and harden a VM manually. Well, now we can deploy it in 45 seconds because we have a known working template. So when we get asked to deploy a virtual machine, we have a template, we push it out. Yep, okay, your server's done, it's hardened, off you go. And we have all the security protocols in there that we need. Everything's configured and there's no manual processes. Now there might still be a manual process. That's okay. There are still sometimes manual requirements in these processes, maybe in your first couple of iterations of automating as well. That's okay. But we've started to automate it and we've gone from a 4-hour deploy time to a 45-minute hardened template. So that's a massive difference.
Not only that, it's a force multiplier. So instead of taking 4 hours to deploy each and every VM that you get a request for, now you can deploy 30 of those in 45 seconds, all in parallel.
Yeah, and I actually do a demo. It's in Azure, and it's using Terraform, and I deploy a VM scale set. And in my demo, I have 5 virtual machines, and then I'm like, right, I'm going to change, I want to deploy 25 VMs. And I literally type in 25, I hit OK, we hit Terraform, apply, and I go into the portal, and you see 25 VMs deploying, and you see it scale out, and it takes a couple minutes for the VMs to actually come up. But I would say within about, let's say 5 to 6 minutes, I've deployed 25 VMs.
Right.
Done.
With all the same template. Doing that with VMware back in the day. I mean, you could always script it, but that you were so used to just right-clicking on the template and deploying it and next, and it's just that doesn't.
And then you're tired of it.
Yeah.
And you're going through like, all right, I'm bored of this. I'm hungry. I need to go home. And you hurry it and you rush it. And that's where the human error comes in. Because I don't know about you guys. Yeah. Exactly. Like I get hangry and I'm like, I can't deal with, let's just get through this. And that's the hangry for me is my downfall, or the like super exhaustion. But the hangry is like, that's when I make my most mistakes. So I know I have to stop, go do something else, come back to it. But yeah, or I automate it. And then I automate it, go get a cup of tea, as the Brits would do, and my biscuit, come back, done. And then I haven't been hangry. I haven't misdeployed anything, and everyone is happy.